Well, trainers, here we are, another video slash podcast of sorts, jumping into Master League update from last week's video and seeing and summarizing and updating teams and Pokemon that have been more meta relevant and not as much meta relevant based on our predictions. We're here in the car. We usually do in our car videos in the past month or so for our longer form content to build up for our channel. But I don't know. I am right now recording with the video. We got, our phone just for some random pointers. But we're going to dive in and talk about the update with Master League. So as I predicted for the most part, I think the one thing that has been very, very common this past week has been the double dragons in the back. Double dragon teams, either ABA or for the most part in the back, has just been a thing. Plug in whatever Pokemon you want in the lead, which seems to be like Meloetta, Keldeo, which has been one of the stronger top picks this go around this rotation, which I had not even talked about from the video last week. Keldeo has been a very, very strong pick, only because I forgot that Aqua Jet is actually on that Pokemon. Fun fact. Yeah, almost any Pokemon in the lead and have two dragons in the back is very, very strong. Now, I've seen a team flying around a little bit here or there. Some people hit vet with it. It was White Kyurem in the lead with Origin Palkia and Origin Dialga in the back, which seems to be very, very strong. You could still kind of have some weaknesses with Rhyperior, but for the most part, the team, I guess, has been working very, very well. You could probably substitute White Kyurem with Black Kyurem and be completely fine more than anything. But again, Double Dragons has been a thing. I think Axon has posted a video with Melmetal Double Dragon. I think it was with Dialga and White Kyurem in the back, if I'm not mistaken. But again, Double Dragon. Melmetal has been very, very strong this go around as a pick for this rotation. For the most part, people have been jumping around with the movesets a little bit between Double Iron Bash and Superpower or Thunderbolt, which I think, and even Rock Slide too, which has been kind of surprising, but it almost seems like the Double Iron Bash and the Superpower is the way to go, or at least from what I experienced this past week of people playing using Melmetal. I kind of predicted Thunderbolt, but we're not really seeing as many flying types this go around this rotation. Here nor there, more in the safe swap position. We've seen Ho-Oh, but besides that, we're not really seeing as many Vertals in the back or in the switch. Not really much in the lead, which I've been kind of surprised because I think it would have a little bit more play seeing as many Dusk mains in the lead, which is another team that I've been seeing, or at least the core that's been being introduced a little bit more, which is Dusk main in the lead with either Origin Palkia in the back and also White Kyurem. Like whenever I've seen a Rhyperior in the lead or Dusk main, best believe there was a White Kyurem in the back for that hard counter if you want to come in with a Palkia or a Rhyperior or anything that's just going to be weak to that White Kyurem. So yeah, it was one of those interesting observations I've seen this past week was those two type of cores, either with the Rhyperior Duskmane lead with a White Kyurem in the back, kind of plug in whatever you want in the middle, which could have been a fairy type, could have been Origin Palkia or any other dragons for all that matters. I mean, or even a Rhyperior in that case. But yeah, it was pretty interesting for the most part to see that. Rhyperior is still very, very strong in this meta, surprisingly enough. You can't shake that Pokemon away in the Master League. It's just the movesets is just strong. It's just so strong. I did use Rhyperior. I don't know if you've seen the short and the last live that I hit vet with Rhyperior, Heatran, and Origin Palkia. Origin Palkia being in the lead. Surprisingly enough, Heatran has made a rise in this past rotation, thanks to one of my friends and another friends that recommended it. But there's just been a lot of steel types in the back or dragons or, the rough Ho-Ohs here nor two that we would see. And Stone Edge was actually the moveset that you wanted to have instead of Iron Head, which is what PV Poke has recommended. You want to double check your movesets sometimes, even though PV Poke may recommend a certain moveset over another. Because having Iron Head to Magnastorm, you have no coverage against a Ho-Oh whatsoever, which has been the common denominator, hence the one short that I posted that someone did not know about. But even then, like for people that do know the movesets for Heatran, they probably are assuming to some extent that you're going to have Iron Head and Magnastorm, and they're going to not shield the first move with Ho-Oh, or even the second one for all that matters. But yeah, Heatran, been such a fun pick this go around for this rotation, I haven't really had much play or use with it in the past because of Lando, Rhyperior, and a few other water types that make it very hard to use. But it's been a fun pick. Origin Palkia, as amongst of all dragons, I think has been the most consistent, has been very reliable, and it's still one of the strongest Pokemon, at least the dragon types of all dragons. I still would say that the Kyurems are very strong, but they've been getting more hard countered. They're, a little bit, not to say harder to use, but they do have a little bit more finesse and a different type of play style than you would have with the other dragon types in our current meta. Origin Dialga has always been strong still that we've been seeing, hence why a lot of Rhyperiors have been in this meta. A lot of Landos are still in part of this meta. So it's one of those things where, like the white Kyurems are becoming more of the rise of or at least the preferred Kyurem fused Pokemon to use rather than black Kyurem. Still both very strong fused Pokemon. I've seen in this past rotation as well too, a lot of Dragon Tail black Kyurems have been on the rise to counter the white fused Kyurems and other, things in the meta where, like Dragon Tail is just more oppressive than Shadowclaw. One's not necessarily better than the other, but people have been using in ways that are just more unique to the team itself. But more than anything, Dragon Tail has been more of a thing, which I kind of predicted. Like having it in the lead makes a lot more sense than it is in the back. But I've seen a couple Dragon Tail users in the back, which makes sense. There's no like right or wrong way to actually use Black Kyurem with Dragon Tail, but I think it makes more sense in the lead because a lot more people were using White Kyurem in the lead. And I think as a counter to Kyurem, that makes a lot more sense. Surprisingly enough, another Pokemon that made a strong presence in this meta has been Keldeo. Now, a lot of people don't really have one or have a good IV one to really build. But with Poison Jab, Sacred Sword, and Aqua Jet, it's one of those types where it does create a lot of problems and it core breaks a lot of teams. And it's been a very, very strong pick. Now, I haven't paid too close attention to teams that are built around it, but I've seen, some dragon types and fairy types surrounding Keldeo, which has been, I guess, makes some sense. But it's been one of those Pokemon that I personally have not even predicted from the first video being one of the top metas in our current rotation because of Aqua Jet. I completely forgot I actually had Aqua Jet as a moveset, surprisingly enough. But yeah, it's one of those Pokemon that I think is still going to be strong this coming rotation this week in Master League and even probably coming up in the next rotation in a couple weeks because there's not going to be anything else in the meta that's really going to be shifted so much. I think another type of strong Pokemon in this meta has been Florges. I think out of all the fairy types, Florges has been very, very strong. Surprisingly enough, I've been seeing like Marto and a few other content creators been using it. Sometimes pairing it with Rhyperior, sometimes pairing it up with Annihilate, which I think it's kind of crazy, but it does work if you know how to play and use the team. But I think for the most part, I've been seeing with the pair between Rhyperior and Origin Palkia. Florges with Trailblaze now doesn't like give you a lot of wins against some of the hard counter Pokemon like Rhyperior, but with the ramp up of Trailblaze, it does cause a lot of potential like harm or scenarios in the mid to close where when Floor just ramps up and throws a Moonblast, I mean Moonblast already hits, but it hits even more with the Trailblaze on top of like Trailblaze amongst things that are either like the water types or the grass types or the ground types, not the grass types. I'm thinking Trailblaze still, but for the ground types like Lando, Rhyperior, and a few other types like Prima with the water, and also Kyogre's not really being much of a thing in the league, but being how spammy it is with Trailblaze and Fairy Winds, it makes Florges so good in this meta. With Ice Fang, White Kyurem being a thing, a lot of your flyer types are no longer a thing, and Namorous is so hard to use now, and with the coverage of what Namorous has, Florges can pretty much do. And then it can ramp up on top of that, like I just said, with Trailblaze, so even Moonblast hits harder than what Namorous could do. Now, Florges is not like a high attack stat Pokemon. It's not a legendary by all means, but it's still one of those Pokemon that has a lot of bulk, has a lot of flexibility, has a single typing of Fairy, which has been like the main forefront of what a Fairy should do in this meta. You know, with a lot of Dragon types in Master League, Florges resists a lot of those Dragon Breath users, and it just makes it a lot more viable in certain situations. And pairing it up with Palkia, like I said, Origin Palkia being one of the stronger dragons and more consistent dragon types, it causes a lot of pressure with shields between Palkia, with Florges, add Rhyperior into the mix. You have a very, very strong, flexible Pokemon or team of Pokemon that works really, really well. Rhyperior with Breaking Swipe to get the debuffs potential. Rock Wrecker still being like a very, very strong, heavy move. You know, if you even have a Shadow Rhyperior, it makes things even more difficult. Though PV Pokemon, if I remember correctly, the regular one is still better. But I think even Shadow having the attack boost makes it just much more aggressive more than anything. To add on to Florges, Home Slice Henry, content creator if you don't know by now, has created a team that hit Expert, being the second one to what we know in Master League, using Florges, Black Kyurem, and Terrakion, which Terrakion is actually a very, very cool pick. Terrakion, as far as I know, is such a core breaker, which is what Henry loves to do when it comes to Master League. It's one of those things that is very, very smart when it comes to team analysis and kind of predicting what the meta is going to be like and finding that one Pokemon that's going to accelerate with those teams that we can kind of predict. And Terrakion is one of those picks for sure. It core breaks a lot of the flying types, core breaks a lot of the steel types like Dialga. With Sacred Sword and Rock Slide being its coverage moves, you have a lot of viability. And Terrakion, you know, even though the typing is not the best typing, it's probably still one of the best fighters in the league with Sacred Sword, because, you know, you can just charge up to those moves very, very fast. So you can cause a lot of pressure, a lot of damage. You can stall out the time a lot quicker. It's one of those things, like I mentioned earlier in the video, that Master League this go around has been more flexible and it's been more focused towards Pokemon that can get to its charge moves really, really fast, that can stall up the timer very, very quickly and cause a lot of pressure, because you want to get those shields down rather quickly. You want to have good energy management so you have a good opportunity to close a matchup with, Kyurems or other Pokemon that have strong, very hard-hitting moves to close out the matchups. So yeah, Terrakion is a very, very surprising pick. I mean, it's fun. It's really cool to see Henry come up with Florges, Black Kyurem, and Terrakion. You know, kind of get some shields in the beginning with Florges being the bulky Pokemon with good typing that it is, with a lot of things that we've seen in the meta. And then with the energy advantage or even the shield advantage with Kyurem, you know, you're going to have the free shock that's going to cause a lot of pressure in the back. And if you need to make that quick switch in Terrakion to have that coverage, it makes a lot of sense there. So that's about it for the most part with Master League. I mean, there's not a lot of crazy teams. There's a lot of old team comps that we've seen that's been flipped into a lot more updated, newer Pokemon. And yeah, I mean, besides that, like a couple teams I've experienced in the past week that hasn't been so much relevant. It's been kind of interesting is the triple water line. You know, having Palkia in the lead with Prima and Kyogre in the back. With a team that I did use to hit Veteran, I experienced it a couple times, and it's very frustrating. I think it's still one of those things it's a little bit harder to use because Prima kind of fall off the meta a little bit with the typing that it is and the moves that it has. You know, I think for the most part, you still want Charm. And from what I experienced, actually, maybe I might spend a couple extra minutes on this a little bit, but you know, Charm Prima in the back has been very interesting with the amount of Dialgas that we've seen. So it kind of made some sense there. But even Waterfall Prima is still a thing a little bit here nor there. But the one thing that just came to my mind that I did forget was Meloetta. Meloetta is another strong Pokemon, which I don't remember if I actually really... I mean, I did cover it in the video last week, but it is a very, very strong Pokemon. Again, not a lot of people have been using it as much. I've experienced other content creators and or streamers that have a good one that are actually using it. I would say Romcam Jackson has been rocking it out, which is what I predicted and used because he did use it last season with Meloetta in the lead with Shadow Rhyperior or Rhyperior and Dialga. But one of the things that he was struggling with quite a bit was the Charm Prima, because he was using almost for the most part Origin Dialga for the closer, and Prima can take an Iron Head and it can get to the moves pretty well, being as bulky as it is. The dual type. So, but yeah, Meloetta is still very strong. Like I said, I haven't really seen too many other teams besides what I've been watching with Cam Jackson. But I think, like I mentioned, with the things that Meloetta is weak against, that can't win, Rhyperior is just a very strong core. So you can almost throw like a third dragon again, like I mentioned before. And if it was a Dialga, it could be a Kyurem, or it could be another like strong closure that I mentioned from the first video. But yeah, Meloetta has been very strong, and I've been seeing a couple of those matchups in the higher Elo-esque range, because some people have hit expert and had been very close to expert. So I haven't done much climbing. I've been kind of pacing myself. I don't really have that much time to sit and wait for queue times, but I might switch up the team a little bit this go around for this week for Master League. I might still play a little casual. Because we'll see how it goes for this week, because we have all leagues open. So we have Great League, Ultra League, and Master League. So we might have more queue times with Master League, because more people are going to probably gravitate towards Great League. But for the most part, I think it's going to be at least the rotation now, where people are going to start hitting Legends. So we're going to probably see it maybe in Great League more than anything. But we'll see. So, but that's about it for the video. I think in terms of updates, to see Florges really hitting higher up in the ranks, having a lot more flexibility, more usage, a lot more Keldeo has been really interesting to see. And Rhyperior is still as strong as ever. It's as crazy as it is. And surprisingly enough, like Heatran was doing some work in the mix of this rotation. So, but yeah, that's about it. I'm going to post another video hopefully this week, maybe with some Great League team analysis and some other tips for Go Battle League. So I'll see y'all later.